Its own sceptics powerless, Labour threw away Major's opt-out from the Maastricht Social Chapter Protocol. Many thought the decision to grant independence to the Bank of England was just the first step to euro membership. And the euro itself moved rapidly from plan to reality, driven through by France and Germany. By 2002, the new currency was a reality. Hi, I'd like to change 100 sterling into euros, please. The currency is not a symbol of national independence, like a flag or an anthem. It's a fact of independence, like a border or a legal system or an army. Whoever controls the currency controls the country, said John Maynard Keynes. And it's true, if you don't control your own interest rates or your own economic policy, you have no independence. Luckily for Britain, Blair lacked the nerve to hold his promised referendum, in case he lost. And a canny Gordon Brown devised a formula to postpone euro membership for as long as it suited him to do so.
We've made the question of a single currency one of 5 practical economic tests that have got to be met. We will only recommend joining the single currency if these practical economic tests are met, and then that will be put to a referendum. And I believe that is the right way, that the issue of joining the single currency must be about hard-headed national economic interest for Britain.
I thought the 5 economic tests were thought up by Gordon to keep the issue about whether we joined the single currency within the Treasury and not in number 10.
Labour's rigid discipline demanded absolute loyalty, and so all but silenced the party's remaining Eurosceptics. But they do exist.
Britain in Europe, are you pro?
We are.
Oh, well, I'm against.
Well, you can read both sides of the argument.
Both sides, we get this crap all the time. It's the against we don't get.
Membership of the euro creates constraints and the ability to what I would like a Labour government to do, which is to systematically redistribute power, wealth and opportunity to working class communities. And I think the whole fiscal framework that operates within the European Union, the constraints imposed by the operation of the central bank, mean that it acts as a constraint to do what a Labour government should be doing in terms of, for example, reinvesting in public services, the fight against crime, education, health, and redistributing resources into communities like mine in East London.
Blair made one half-hearted effort to please his European Union friends. In October 1999, he set up the cross-party Britain in Europe campaign to persuade public opinion of the alleged benefits of the single currency. Kennedy, Heath, Clark, Heseltine, the country's leading Brussels enthusiasts, sitting together with the Labour government.
Once in each generation, the case for Britain in Europe needs to be remade from first principles. And the time for this generation is now.
But he lost his nerve. Blair decided that the time to make the case for the euro to this generation would actually be some other time.
Given that the original aims of Britain and Europe, which were to promote a single currency, have been watered down, and it now becomes a support for Europe in general, and with you maintaining your position that you cannot yet decide one way or another over the single currency.
Our position actually is the same, that we support in principle the idea of Britain joining a successful single currency, provided that the economic conditions are met. But we are recognizing that it's right to make the case again for Britain in Europe.
The sceptics, especially Business for Sterling, campaigned to real effect. Many influential figures, institutions and newspapers joined the cause with powerful and well-researched arguments. Decisively, many in the City of London turned against the idea.
3 years ago, it was said simply that euro entry was an inevitability, a deterministic law of political economy of Britain or whatever. That's been proven to be untrue. I think the laws of economics actually act as a sort of handbrake on some of the more excessive dreams of some of my colleagues.
The sceptics had shown their power by saving sterling, for now. They had also wounded the Tories. Tory defectors helped the UK Independence Party win 12 precious seats in the European Parliament. But with the euro issue defused, Labour easily won a second term at Westminster, and the process of European integration went on. unopposed and often unobserved. European law begins here with one volume, a special edition for 1972. Then year by year, a whole shelf for each year, stretching out. The 80s, more 80s, into 1990, more and more of it. Each year, taking over from where English law used to rule and replacing it. These shelves, now reaching right up to now, with volume after volume for each month now, instead of just for each year, will eventually stretch around this whole library.
At the moment, Westminster's in denial. Looking at our parliamentary affairs, the record of what we do, you could hardly know we were a member of the European community. We never hardly discuss anything which actually governs the laws of this country. If we were serious, half the week would be spent scrutinising what's coming out of Europe.
But it's not.
It's not, but it should do.
Emboldened by years of uninterrupted moves towards final union, the EU's leaders at last came out into the open and proposed a European constitution, an unmistakable step towards a European state. Plans for an EU president, an EU defence force and EU foreign policy, already quietly taking shape, suddenly sprang into sharp focus. Anthony Blair, imagining that the change could be sold as a tidying up exercise, was one of the first to sign. Few realised it was a step too far. But it was. And this time it was the French and the Dutch who said no in twin referendums. These two founders of the project had at last discovered scepticism. Yet the project still marches on.
If you actually look at what's been going on, what's been the European Council's been up to, what the European Commission's been up to, it's as if that constitution never existed. They've carried on doing all sorts of things that are in that, like the integration of our defence forces, which is a hugely important thing that's going on at the moment. The European Defence Agency, which is at the heart of it, that is, quote, set up by the Constitution.
Opinion polls on this subject go up and down all the time. But it's my judgment that after 40 years of direct engagement with this European Union, there's now a deep, instinctive scepticism about the project among the British public, which has never been properly articulated by any major political party. In the past 3 decades, sceptical politicians from both right and left have stood in the way of the Brussels juggernaut in the hope of slowing it down, and have instead been squashed like so many hedgehogs. The EU is a machine with no reverse gear. A sceptical Britain will never accept its final goal. Why don't we acknowledge that the EU's aims and our way of life are simply incompatible? Why don't we just pull out of the European Union? None of this trade will stop if we do. We can carry on trading with everybody in Europe without losing any of our political independence. What would we really miss? All the alleged benefits of EU membership, from trade to residence, are available to non-members. Relations with the EU countries would instantly improve. Above all, independence is a precious thing. We rejoice as other nations regain theirs. Why should we give ours away?